Hi guys. So we at the Canadian Constitution Foundation have been in court all day today, July 18th. We have been fighting the British Columbia government over public interest litigation for patient medical choice. For years, we at the Canadian Constitution Foundation have supported a case called Cambie surgeries in British Columbia. That case was brought by Dr. Brian Day, an orthopedic surgeon and the former head of the Canadian Medical Association, as well as the Cambie Surgery Center. And they were challenging restrictions in British Columbia's Medicare Protection Act. Those restrictions prevented Canadians from getting better access to medical care. Well, I'm here to update you about that case, which is all about Canada's failing government monopoly healthcare system. But first, I know a lot of you have your own stories about our healthcare system and you want it to be better. If you want to do something about it, you can sign our petition at theccf.ca/yourhealthstory. And if you visit that website, there's also a portal there where you can send us your own story and your own experience with our healthcare system. I'm going to tell you about one of the stories we've heard recently, and we're looking for more. So I can't wait to tell you all about what happened today. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Christine, and I am the litigation director for the Canadian Constitution Foundation, a legal charity that fights for fundamental freedoms in Canada. I upload regular videos about our ongoing legal cases and about other interesting developments in constitutional law in Canada. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please hit like and subscribe below. It really helps our videos out a lot. Also, please remember, nothing in our videos is legal advice. If you have your own legal question or problem, please consult your own lawyer. So in British Columbia, as in most of Canada, access to medical treatment is rationed by the provincial government using wait lists to limit the overall cost to the government on healthcare spending. At the same time, the province imposes restrictions on access to healthcare for patients who might want to go outside this failing government monopoly system. Now, the Cambie case challenged that failing status quo. In that case, the argument being made by patients, the surgical clinic, and the doctors was that the government can't have a monopoly on healthcare and then also fail to provide a system that works. If BC wants to provide government healthcare, it can't force patients to literally die on wait lists. And if patients are dying because of wait times, which they are, the government needs to allow people to go outside that government monopoly system and get care. And right now, they're not allowed to do that. If the Cambie case had been successful, it would have finally kickstarted a process of rethinking and rebuilding healthcare in Canada. But unfortunately, the BC Court of Appeal found that even though some people are dying on wait lists and this violates their constitutional rights, their death is somehow consistent with the principles of fundamental justice and justified to preserve that sacred cow of government healthcare. Now, I think that when you are choosing an ideology over human life, you're living in an oppressive system. Now, we tried to appeal because the decision is so crazy and it's also inconsistent with existing case law. Now, there's a 2005 case from the Supreme Court called Shaiuli and Quebec. And in that case, the Supreme Court found that the Quebec government could not block patients in that province from paying for surgeries when they were suffering on these excessively long wait lists. According to the Supreme Court, to require them to use a government system and preventing them from going outside of it would violate their rights. And the decision in the Cambie case is completely at odds with the decision in the Shaiuli case. These are two very inconsistent legal cases. But we don't have clarity because, unfortunately, the Supreme Court of Canada refused to hear the Cambie appeal. And as a result, now patients in Quebec are left with more rights than patients in the rest of Canada. And there are very important legal questions about Canadians' rights that are now unanswered. Now, we, as a public interest organization, we were supporting this litigation for years. But now the British Columbia government is demanding that the CCF and our partners pay $1.7 million to cover some of those legal bills that they racked up fighting against Canadians' rights. Just to put that amount of money into perspective, we at the CCF spent less than $2.1 million on all of our work, including all of our cases and special projects and events in the last year. So this is just complete government mismanagement of legal bills as usual, but the BC government's mismanagement of their legal costs and their desire to fight public interest litigation that would actually help BC patients, that shouldn't result in a punishment of those of us who are seeking to improve the system. But that is what they were in court today trying to do. Punish us with this $1.7 million cost order against us. It's completely horrible. The Cambie case really is important public interest litigation. Canadians have been promised universal access to healthcare, but patients can see, even through just minor interactions with the healthcare system, just how broken it is. And God forbid you have something seriously wrong and need urgent treatment. I know everyone who's listening to this probably has had their own experience with our healthcare system, or they know somebody who has. And I will say that the doctors and nurses who work in that system, they are amazing and they want to help people. But rationing care by government won't let them do their job. Many surgeons can't even get enough operating time to maintain their surgical skills because of government rationing. Now, I want to take a minute to tell you one story. And sadly, as I said, I know many of you will have your own similar experience or know somebody who has. And if you have, go to that portal at theccf.ca/yourhealthstory. Now, the story I want to tell you is about a woman named Allison. Allison is 58 years old and she lives in Victoria. In October of 2022, she started experiencing abdominal pain. And within weeks, she went to an emergency room and tests confirmed the worst, abdominal cancer. Allison met with a local surgeon who told her that she was too sick for surgery and that chemotherapy would at best slow her cancer down. She was given 2 months to 2 years to live. The wait, though, to see an oncologist could be 2 years or more. The surgeon told her to go home and get her affairs in order. So she gathered her children, who were then 21 and 26, to tell them that she was going to die. I just can't imagine how hard a conversation like that would be. And my colleague, Josh DeHaas, has talked to Allison and he's written about her story in The Line. I'll link to it below. But I want to tell you what happened next. She told Josh that telling her kids that she was dying was the hardest thing she'd ever had to do. And she told Josh that seeing how it affected them, it just made her want to find a way to dig a little deeper. So Allison promised them that night. She said, I'm not close to giving up here. I'm going to try other solutions. So family and friends of Allison's contacted 4 American clinics, which all said that she was actually a candidate for something called CRS and HIPEC, CRS and HIPEC, which is a procedure where surgeons remove abdominal tumors and then flood the abdomen with chemotherapy drugs. So Allison met with a surgeon in Baltimore that January. He operated 2 weeks later and it saved her life. Allison finally got to see a British Columbia oncologist in March of 2023, more than 3 months after being told that she had as little as 2 months to live. Now, 18 months post-surgery, Allison is now in remission and feeling great, apart from the headache that was caused by more than $200,000 in medical bills racked up by going to the US, staying in a hospital, getting surgery there, and having all the scans done there. And British Columbia, even though they weren't providing her with that care, they won't reimburse her for that cost, as they, sometimes do. They won't reimburse because the BC Cancer Agency says that their surgeon would have recommended a different treatment option and that the province's policy is that they'll only reimburse patients for out-of-country treatment where recommended by the BC Cancer Agency. But do you know what that alternative treatment option that they had recommended for Allison was? It was palliative chemotherapy. What an insult. So Allison is in the process now of trying to access BC's safety valve program, but she hasn't had any success yet. The province won't pay without a recommendation from the BC Cancer Agency, which has said that it won't offer its recommendation because there's insufficient evidence that the surgery received would have improved Allison's quality of life or life expectancy. Now, it's hard to see how they can say that with a straight face to a woman who appears to be on this planet alive more than a year and a half after her diagnosis, only because she had the wherewithal to actually leave Canada and leave that failing BC system. Now, we all know that Allison should not have had to leave Canada to access apparently life-saving private healthcare when the public government system failed to provide it. And because the Supreme Court refused to hear our case in Cambie, bizarrely, it remains an open question about whether people like Allison's constitutional rights are even violated by laws that lead to deadly wait lists while blocking them from obtaining private healthcare close to home. The treatment was unavailable due to the Medicare Protection Act in British Columbia, that BC law that aims to prevent the development of a private healthcare option. Now, the way the Medicare Protection Act works is it blocks surgeons from charging more than the provincial plan will pay, which makes private clinics financially unviable, and also it effectively prevents the sale of private insurance. It's quite similar to what the Chiuli case in Quebec was about. Now, we tried to fight this case on constitutional grounds, which is the type of work that we do as a public interest organization, but the Supreme Court, as I said, refused to even hear the appeal. So now British Columbia is demanding that we pay $1.7 million to cover the huge lawyer bills that they racked up fighting us. This kind of crushing cost claim seems aimed at punishing us for engaging in public interest litigation. So that's what we were in court today fighting back about. But regardless of what happens in this cost case, we don't plan to give up the fight for more healthcare options for patients, which we believe are constitutionally required. In our view, having private options alongside the public system, the existing government system, would result in shorter wait lists in the public system, since it would have fewer patients to cover with the same amount of tax money. We also think it would be more humane for people like Allison to have access to care close to home. Now, if BC succeeds in getting us at the CCF to pay $1.7 million in costs, that is going to make it a lot harder for us to continue mounting these kinds of public interest challenges, and challenges like all the other work we do, like the challenge to the Emergencies Act, standing up for freedom of expression. If they take $1.7 million from us, it is really going to hurt. But like Allison, I don't plan to give up. Provincial laws that violate Canada's constitutionally protected right to life itself, those laws need to be challenged. And that's why we supported that Cambie litigation. And it's unjust and inhumane to deny Canadians the basic right to life, to require patients to suffer and die on wait lists, and then impose huge costs on anyone who's challenging that broken government system. If you're interested in helping to support our fight for patient choice and our fight against the BC government's attempt to basically destroy all the work that we do, you can make a tax-deductible charitable donation at the ccf.ca/yourhealthcan'twait/donate. And as I said, if you've had an experience like Allison's or know someone who has, go and sign that petition at the ccf.ca/yourhealthstory and send in what has happened to you. I really want to know what your experiences have been like if you've had an experience as bad as Allison's. And if you're interested in following the case and finding out what happens next, of course, sign up for our email freedom updates at the ccf.ca/freedom updates. Okay, that's all. Thanks for watching, and let's keep fighting for freedom in Canada.